But let's talk about a playoff game. There's two that are still left. Peru versus Australia is kicking off today. But then we have Costa Rica versus New Zealand. The Kiwis taking on the Ticos. And I don't know. It's tough. When I think about Group E, whoever comes through this game, Costa Rica, New Zealand, they're in a group with Spain, Germany, and Japan. So I feel like they might just be having a cup of coffee and getting out in the group stages anyway. But Heath, I'm going to come to you first. What we know about the Ticos is that they won 4 consecutive games to finish World Cup qualifying and pip Panama at the very end to get that 4th spot to get into the Intercontinental playoff. And they did it behind not necessarily a lot of goal scoring, but some stout defending, and most notably with one of the best goalkeepers in the world in Keylor Navas. He didn't play in the Nations League games that they had leading up to this one, but he's definitely playing and ready for this one against the Kiwis. Now, the Kiwis boast a player named Chris Wood, who plays for Newcastle, 33 goals in 67 international matches for New Zealand. So you got two guys. I don't say they're going to cancel each other out. I think Keylor Navas probably means more to Costa Rica. Well, maybe not than Chris Wood means to New Zealand. But that's going to be a matchup to watch. I just think that with Keylor Navas in goal, you always have a chance. The Ticos are trying to qualify for their 3rd consecutive World Cup. How do you see this one playing out? And who do you like, Heath Pearce?
Wow, this is a really tough one. I think Costa Rica are a better team for sure. The way that these playoffs are built, though, you just don't know who is going to come out of these ones. Costa Rica if this game was back right when qualifying ended, then I would have gone with Costa Rica on the lean just because they had that momentum and that swing on their side. They were out of the World Cup qualifying campaign and then just went on this spectacular run. It wasn't like a new set of players came in or players stepped up. It's the same old guard that they've had, continuing to get them results, which means they have the experience and know what it's like to manage this game. So I'm going to go with Costa Rica to win this one and go to the World Cup. And again, I think they'll be there for a cup of coffee just because this can only go for so long with the players that they have at the international level, at the World Cup level. I think experience means something, but you also have to have the legs. You also have to have the ability to compete. And I'm not sure they can do that at a World Cup level, but I think Costa Rica win this one.
Okay, so Charlie, just to give some more context about this Costa Rican team, I feel like a lot of the same players that helped them surprisingly win their group of death in the 2014 World Cup, which included Uruguay, Italy, and England, are still playing today. So that is a bit of an issue that Brian Ruiz in particular, who probably be the captain of this one, he's 36 years old, 137 caps for the national team, scoring 28 goals during that time. And Celso Borges is also expected to play. He's super old. And
I don't think Jimmy's pronounced the name correctly today, by the way.
I don't know what
Keylor Navas.
Ronnie Delia. Standard Liege. Guys, I don't even know. Timmy, I was going to bring it up after the show, but I just can't stop now.
Cristiano Pulisic.
I'm going to get there too.
Pulisic. Yeah, Cristiano Pulisic. So anyway, despite my gringo pronunciations of everybody's names, who do you like in this one, Charlie? Because it seems like Costa Rica has been hanging on to some older players for a long time to see them through. But this is most likely their last hurrah, and there's probably some urgency there for them to finally kind of end their national team careers on a high note.
Vamos los Ticos. I am all about this team. Talk about a transformation from the first half of World Cup qualifying to finish. They were on a fire truck. I mean, they were on a storm. You talk about experience. Everybody had their place. They knew they have an identity. Sure, they lack a striker. They lack a goal scorer, but it's by committee. I mean, it literally is. We're going to defend. We're going to look to counter, and we're going to be super dangerous on set pieces. And they have Celso Borges, but they also have Keylor Navas, who stands on his head multiple times a game.
Right.
Francisco
and Alvaro
Calvo,
Saborio has recently turned 40 now, so he's in the 40
yeah,
club.
he doesn't get that much playing time, if any. I mean, Francisco Calvo, right? He plays differently with Costa Rica than he does in MLS. He plays for San Jose Earthquakes, but long time.
I.e., he plays well for his country.
He does play well for his country. And Keisha Fuller is another player who I think does really well at the right back position. Brian Oviedo at the left back position. He plays for Copenhagen, played for Everton. They have players who rise to the challenge. And then Brian Ruiz, he's 36 years old, but he comes in and he's like a super sub. He can play 45 minutes. It's usually like his benchmark. loses his legs past 45. But Joel Campbell is the difference maker for them in the attack. So when you're talking about playing New Zealand, I like their chances. I think they have a great defensive team, but they also have players who can hurt you, and Joel Campbell is who they're going to have to rely on.
Yeah, and he just scored against Martinique in the Nations League prior to one of these games. So he's in good form. And when he's in good form, they're definitely a different team going forward. Now, kind of an overall question for both of you. Charlie, I'll throw it right back to you. With Concacaf potentially getting 4 teams in the World Cup, I mean, how important is it for this region, especially now before the expansion of the World Cup to 48 teams in 2026? To really kind of cement that, hey, we do have some national teams that can play, because it always, even though with Costa Rica winning a very difficult World Cup group in 2014, it still feels like we don't get the respect that we deserve. That, oh, it's easy to qualify from this region and blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of, I'm being a Euro snob right now, but how important would you think it would be for CONCACAF to have a 4th team?
It's huge. Our region is only growing. Major League Soccer has really helped the rest of CONCACAF. So Costa Rica, if they win, I think they are going to be able to at least have a result or two that will surprise people, because they are so good defensively. In the World Cup, it's all about your structure and tactically, do you know when to push forward and when to drop? It's a World Cup, anything can happen. And we've seen what Costa Rica did in 2014. They stunned everybody. I mean, Mexico also stunned people in 2018, beating Germany. So Mexico, as talented as they've been poor, but that can all change in 6 months.
Right.
You never know, right? And I think the same with this U.S. men's national team. We've been ultra critical of them. The main goal for them was just to qualify for the World Cup, but we've been ultra critical throughout, and rightfully so, considering 2018. But Greg Berhalter has taken, endless comments about his ability to run this team. But he's got the trophies. He's got them in the World Cup. And I think they've continued to make progress. So I'm excited to see what they can achieve in the World Cup. And you have to like our chances, considering we have a lot of depth. And if everyone can be playing, and that's a big if everyone is playing and fit heading into that World Cup, we have a group that we can really do some damage.
Now, it's funny you bring up Tata Martino in Mexico. Well, you didn't bring up Tata, but I'm going to bring him up because there was a lot of clamoring, for myself included. I raised my hand here and say that just the way that it took us a while to hire somebody when that spot was open. It took a year. We had Dave Sarakin as the interim coach for a year before Greg Berhalter took over. He wanted to finish his time with Columbus Crew. We didn't feel like we really opened up the job to multiple people. Tata Martino said he was interested. Never gave him an interview. And then he crushed it. Like in the first, 26, 27 games, he only lost twice with Mexico. I was like, we needed Tata Martino. But now it seems like everybody with Mexican national team that supports them wants Tata Martino out, Heath Pearce. So do you feel like maybe U.S. Soccer, especially with the benefit of hindsight, made the right decision by sticking with Greg Berhalter and going with him? Or do you feel like maybe we would have been this far along no matter who was there because of our players are so talented, or maybe Tata Martino would have had us even farther down the road?
That's a really good question. I think Greg Berhalter's done a great job of evolving, right? When you go back to the way he wanted to play, very Columbus Crew-like, spread out, methodical, possession-based. I think he's now realized that that's a personnel-based system. You don't always have those players, and we've seen that evolution now in the way that our center backs are, because we don't have John Anthony Brooks, who's great on the ball. We have more serviceable center backs that are going to be defense first, decent at passing, but not great at passing through lines, under pressure, things like that. And so I think he's evolved really well with this team in his own sort of growth curve as a manager. I think we saw that the difference between that and what we saw with Jurgen Klinsmann was sort of, by any means necessary, we're going to keep on doing this thing. But as we're getting closer to a World Cup, we're sort of weaning off of the dream of how we want to play and into more of a how we need to play. And I think moving forward, that will continue to develop. Now, whether or not another manager could have done that or had us more advanced, I'm not really sure. It's really difficult to say. Greg Berhalter has gotten fantastic results for this national team over his tenure. Now, you may not like him. You may call it nepotism in the way that he was hired and all these things. He may not give you the best interviews or get the drama that you want, that you get out of Mexico.
He does bounce passes, though.
He does bounce passes.
And he wears rare kicks.
Yeah, and he wears rare kicks. But I think he's done a great job, and I can't imagine another manager coming in, immersing themselves in a way and doing better. Now, maybe the same, but it's hard to think about doing better. Now, we finished third in World Cup qualifying and things like that you can nitpick and say another manager could have handled that storm better. But we qualified for a World Cup after a failure with a group of no experienced players, and he brought that group together that they seem like they're really willing to fight for each other. So I think in hindsight, U.S. Soccer has made the right decision.
Yeah, it's hard to argue otherwise, given especially the turmoil that Mexico seems to be under. And it almost feels like they've regressed in some ways. They seem to have lacked more of an identity than they did when he previously took over. And I wonder what the deal is, and I'm sure more of that will come out. But again, they're only judged by World Cups. You're judged by what you do in World Cups. You got to qualify for them, and once you do, that's what people remember the most.